Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, for part 2 of this Taylor TV podcast about the subject of the James Hind, an online identity already confessed to have been a 12-year-old decoy, a Satanist, and a super troll. So we will be delving in deeper to this online entity called James Hind. And what we'll also be doing is reading in his own words exactly what he feels about himself, what he does online, and the world around him. So I'm just making sure everything is ticketed to before we delve in deeper to this part 2 of this Taylor TV podcast. Now, a lot of what I do exposing the online activities of this individual called James Hind is based on a blog he published in November 2018, in which he confessed to his online activities of being a 12-year-old boy with the intention of identifying and removing paedophiles from a popular online children/teenager social media site of which he was a moderator. So, having been brought in with the task of identifying and removing paedophiles, instead, in his own words, we learn that once identifying paedophiles, he allowed them to remain in the chat rooms and continue their paedophilic activities. Now, like I said, having deleted that original blog from his Satanic View WordPress blog, we can still see what he said by visiting the Hoaxtead research.wordpress.com blog run by the familiar Karen Irvin, aka E. Coyote, a username. So, delving straight in, this was published on the 9th of November 2018 in response to that infamous James Hind blog, which he has now removed. So posted by E. Coyote on Hoaxtead Research, where the kids are, the shocking reality of online chat rooms. Karen Irvin writes, in yesterday's discussion about the extraordinary number of convicted paedophiles who seem to be friends with or promoted by people who purport to be children's rights activists and paedophile exposers, one of our commentators described the shocking reality of the online chats where paedophiles prey on teens and preteens. Posing as a young user, Satanic Views, aka James Hind, aka it could be anyone, began to explore the chat rooms with the goal of developing an AI, artificial intelligence, in case you didn't know what that meant, tool which could help counter the grooming process. To develop such a tool, he says, it's first necessary to understand the mind and action of the paedophiles who frequent these chats. While we know that SV's, Satanic Views, aka James Hind, aka it could be anyone, while we know that SV's motives are pure and his goal is observation only, we would like to caution readers that this is not an activity we would recommend for anyone. Participation in this sort of activity brings many risks and should really only be attempted by police who are equipped to deal with such situations. Now, for the purposes of all of us, I think it's necessary just to repeat that sentence and just familiar ourselves, all of us, with what the stance Karen Irvin was taking against this disclosure by James Hind on his Satanic Views blog. So I'll repeat what she said. While we know that SV's motives are pure, that's an assumption there, I hasten to add, and his goal is observation only, that doesn't seem to be the case, I just hasten to add. We would like to caution readers that this is not an activity we would recommend for anybody. Participation in this sort of activity brings many risks and should really only be attempted by police who are equipped to deal with such situations. And for the purposes of Taylor TV and the purposes of this podcast, we would like to reiterate the same sentiment. We do not recommend anyone to employ the tactics such as James Hind of identifying as a 12-year-old boy on popular children's and teens social media sites. Repeating the words we've heard here, get this information to the police and let the proper trained authorities do their jobs. So, back to the words of James Hind in a blog that he doesn't want you to know about. He says, Satan hunters know fuck all about paedophiles, how they operate and the impact they have on children. So this implies just in itself there that James knows how paedophiles operate and the impact they have on children. But please, I must get on and tell you that he says if the Satan hunters were on the ball about the destruction paedophiles inflict upon children and society, they would not be so loving and supportive of those child abusers. The challenge of society is that it is not public relations friendly to invest charity and taxpayer money into researching and helping paedophiles overcome their medical condition. However, this is important to do this because the problem and numbers are getting worse and the police and other experts overrun. It's interesting, just interjecting with my own personal thoughts, that James Hind equates paedophilia to a mental condition. James continues, for personal and business reasons, I want to learn more about the paedophiles, their process of grooming in chat rooms, the impact they have on their victims, what the police and paedophile hunters are doing, and what the children feel, experience, think and act with regards to these paedophiles. I need this insight to be able to speak about this and to create some AI to counter the grooming process. I have never been on a chat room before, but for a few weeks I have been watching and interacting on a number of chat rooms. It's been very educational, especially learning about how I am reacting and feeling about things. There is a number of things that the experts have not picked up upon or are very wrong. In one chat room, I am aware of a pattern never reported before that certain types of girl in the 12 to 15 age group will actively challenge paedophiles but seem to end in a close emotional interaction with a few. That too many teens are not checking who they are friending when it's obvious it is a paedophile. That boys and rumoured some girls have adopted the process of paedophiles to predate on fellow children. that the harassment of children and women in chat rooms is very intense, especially by predatory males, with probably 10 attempts on a female for every 1 attempt on a boy. That the paedophile hunters and police are insulting if they think that most teens write like them in chats with retarded text speak. The younger teens write very well. And groomers don't spend weeks and months grooming on the internet. Most move forward towards the subject of sex very quickly. As a narrator, just reading these words, I'm shocked by the level of knowledge and dedication he's putting into this. It's very disturbing to read. And again, I'd just like to put a disclaimer in these Taylor TV podcasts. We do cover disturbing subjects. So going back to James Hind's own words, he continues, the experts with an AI who think that when someone discloses something personal, it's a red flag that they are paedophile, clearly have no clue. Since I have seen lots of situations of people disclosing things for attention seeking, and teens are quite open in what they share. It is certain that in some of the chat rooms I am on, there are dozens of police and paedophile hunters on trying to catch groomers. The police, I believe, just sit there waiting for people to contact them, whilst the hunters are more interactive. They mostly have a stock photo of a kid as their avatar, some retarded bio which makes them look like a kid speaking, and a name such as Katie13. I have interacted with lots of these, and they are seriously hard going to get into conversation. You know, you kind of know they are fake because the conversation dies. They are one-word answers like yes, laugh out loud and cool. They totally ignore me after looking at my bio. The conversation dies since they are not talkative or participating much. These people could be a bit more interactive in my opinion and stop treating teens like text retards. I've got so much to say, interject as a narrator here, but I have to just keep to what has been written by himself. So he continues, and I find it quite hard to cover this material. For the purposes of the paedophiles, I play an insight role as a young teen male. My avatar is really me, and my story is roughly as it was at that age. I am as authentic as possible, and I keep away from the subject of sex, but this becomes harder when a groomer moves in on me. So again, this is at the crutch of these series of Taylor TV podcasts in which we're introducing this online character of James Hind, and here at the very crutch, for the purposes of the paedophiles, I play an insight role as a young teen male. My avatar is really me, and my story is roughly as it was at that age. I am as authentic as possible, and I keep away from the subject of sex, but this becomes harder when a groomer moves in on me. So that is the confession at the centre of these podcasts. James Hind continues, I'm ambivalent about what I am seeing of the teens. They appear streetwise. They do talk about sex in main chat. They are open, impulsive, play dangerous roles such as being a paedophile asking for nudes in order to expose one. They are cruel, for instance. In one case, suggesting a moderator got their role by sleeping with the admin. I take people as is when I interact with them. So if they say they are 13, I treat them as such in all the interactions. If a person says they are self-harming, taking drugs or feeling suicidal, I'll say to them not to do that and seek help. I will warn noobs to be careful, and I'll intervene if I think someone is looking at risk. There's only so much I can say and do within my role. Of the paedophiles, on a regular basis, I was asked straight out if I had sisters. Their ages, nothing about me. I would ask, why? And they ignored my question, demanding answers. Although I said I had sisters, which I do, I refused to give any further information. In my interactions, I'm nice, polite and approachable. Probably too trusting and open to conversation. Yesterday, a random person offered me £500 to go onto Snapchat or Omegle and do what they said. I asked what they wanted and they were not sure, but wanted me in my underwear. When they wanted me to send pictures or video of my penis, I refused. I think I'm being stalked by one person through a number of accounts, I'm not sure. One individual based in Kent did not speak sexually to me, but it felt like grooming, in that they wanted to meet me and I showed them my karate moves. Probably the same person wanted to wrestle with me to test the strength of my legs. People who start a conversation with ASL I know to be adults and wanting sex. They get ignored, and I hate that word. One individual asked if I was gay. When I said I was straight, threatened to kill themselves. Some sort of emotional blackmail going on to force me to become gay in a relationship, I think. Some people open the conversation with cutie or cute, which is a red flag of grooming. Some issue compliments to me. Some are really nice and friendly. Some want to help me with my homework or interests. Some are bullying, in effect ordering me to interact with them and share Snapchat contact. Some coming in on the emotional level. I have to do a mental reset to get them out my head. Many want me to come off the chat rooms, interact instead by video, Kik, Instagram, email, phone, Omegle, and other ways. As in real life, I'm uncomfortable about talking about my body or that of another's bodies. So when people do talk to me sexually, my discomfort reaches a point really fast that will say I don't like talking about the stuff, or I move on to bring the chat to a close, or I run, or I ignore. The groomer from Kent, I could have ended in their life being ruined, but it is not in my nature to be the cause of ruin in the lives of others, unlike the hunters. I don't like that on my mind. And again, I must interject on this podcast just to highlight what we've just read here. So even though he was tasked of being the moderator of these online social media sites with the intention of identifying and removing paedophiles, we have in his own words that he runs and ignores the paedophiles. And as I'll repeat, the groomer from Kent, I could have ended in their life being ruined, but it is not in my nature to be the cause of ruin of the lives of others. Unlike the hunters, I don't like that on my mind. Here we have the damning self-confession that he indeed does protect paedophiles by failing to report them to the authorities as he was tasked to do so. James Hind continues, I am saddened that the paedophiles are unable to see children as living human beings. I'm stopping because I find it insulting because he includes me in this imaginary category of being a so-called Satan hunter, and to imply that I don't see children as living human beings is just like such a far out insult. I really don't know how to take it. And then to be accused on top of that I see children as sex objects just makes me angry. and gives me the motivation to make these Taylor TV podcasts highlighting the online conduct of this entity called James Hind. I'll repeat what he said. He said, "I am saddened that the paedophiles are unable to see children as living human beings, but instead as sex objects, and that they think the innocence of a child, such as their openness and trust, is a mating signal that they want the paedophile to have sex with them." And again, I apologise for interjecting when I should just be reading his words. But that sentence is really a red flag, and I, hand on heart, I've never read anything like that before in my life. Continuing, James Hind says, "I am confused why males think that putting their penis on display on their avatar is appealing to women and children to interact with them. I am distraught that one chat room is overrun with paedophiles, saying and doing many awful things, like a sweet shop for paedophiles, where the sweets are the children. A place where moderators are children who do not have necessary powers to do anything about it. And the children have been, in effect, thrown to the wolves. This is why an AI is needed for such sites." And then I think we go back to the narration of El Coyote, aka Karen Irvin, who says, in a follow-up comment, Satanic Views notes, Satanic Views, aka James Hind, aka it could be anyone. "The situation is far worse than I have written for one particular site dedicated to kids. To give some examples, the minimum age is 13 plus, and I know there are 11 and 12-year-olds are running around on that site, as I've spoken to them." So here again, I'm sorry, I have to interject into the narration. We have a confession by James Hind that he has spoken with 11 and 12-year-olds on the internet. This is very alarming stuff, and if you suspect anyone of either suffering from didism, dissociative identity disorder, as James Hind does, but if you know anyone with MAP tendencies, you must inform your local police. Going back to James Hind's own words, "All accounts that are registered have an avatar which everyone can see when they are active. When I check on the accounts of who is speaking with me or sends me a friend request, all their friends' avatars can be seen, and these avatar images contain naked people, lots of erect penises, and some people having sex, and some very disturbing illegal content of the top level." Oh my God, again, here we have James Hind admitting in public to have seen some very disturbing illegal content of the top level. I am surprised I haven't fully seen this comment before. Again, this is very disturbing information coming from the mouth of James Hind, who says, "When I check on the accounts of who is speaking with me or sends me a friend request, all their friends' avatars can be seen, and these avatar images contain naked people, lots of erect penises, some people having sex, and some very disturbing illegal content of the top level. Very concerning." And I continue, shaken with nerves. The posts being made on the main chat, which runs to about 50% of the posts, include topics including spanking, foot fetish, people with an obsession for diapers, invites to rape brothers and sisters, trading images via drop box and mega. I cannot believe that he's involved with anything that invites to rape brothers and sisters. This man should be passing all this information to the police, and the very fact that he hasn't confirms my findings as an ex-Royal Military policeman of the 1st Corps, 110 Provost Company, that this man is a map, hidden in plain sight. He continues, the admin who has the power to ban accounts has, according to the moderators, not been seen for months, and the 3 moderators are children. The admin was also a teen. There's been no efforts to appoint a new admin. The moderators don't really know what to do, nor is people behind the site talking to them. They are unable to deal with the situation, nor do they have the powers to take action other than mute accounts for half an hour. There is at least a dozen police from all over the world on the site at any time, and they should know what is going on, and they do nothing. Thousands of children use that site every week, and they say all this, and they are being approached by the paedophiles. What he doesn't understand, interjecting again, is that he has interfered with police operations in this site by being a decoy. So he's wasting police time because he knows the police are already moderating the site. Back to his narration. If people want to see the site I've been talking about, they can message me on Twitter. I will give you the address. I'm blown away, interjecting again. Here he is, willing to share this with other people from the Hoaxtead research community. Other Satanists. He continues, you can join the chat room as a guest without an email and see what I mean. The media, public and parents really don't have a clue just how bad this can be on chat rooms, especially those with moderation problems. We strongly agree with commentators Tracy and Luca that this information, this is going back to the opinion of Karen Irvin now. So this is back to Karen Irvin, who writes as El Coty, the admin of the Hoaxtead research blog site. So back to Karen, she says, we strongly agree with commentators Tracy and Luca that this information most definitely belongs in the hands of the police. And that's a sentiment both Taylor TV, well, myself as Taylor TV podcasting would urge everyone with this type of information, just pass it to the police. And as Karen Irvin carries, in particular, the chat room described above and the groomer from Kent sounds like crimes waiting to happen. CEOP ought to be informed of these situations. Once again, we would caution readers that Satanic Views, aka James Hind, aka it could be anyone, has done should not be attempted by others. Very valid point. Not whatever pretending to be a decoy, 12-year-old decoy online in dangerous paedophile online media sites is not a good idea and should not be done by anyone. Should you find any evidence of online grooming or other forms of child exploitation, please contact CEOP via a link provided. So understanding paedophiles. More generally, we agree that hand in hand with teen-child safeguarding approach, it's important to understand the mind of the paedophile in order to intervene as early as possible and prevent them from causing harm in the first place. Each to their own. I certainly don't want to understand the mind of a paedophile. I think they should be seen as a crime, but that's just my opinion. Karen Irvin continues, this is a massive task and not something which can be achieved by one person or even a small group of people. It requires not only a robust knowledge base, but the political and social will to focus on the pre-offender side of the problem with a multi-pronged approach. Okay. This could involve such things as early intervention in the form of sexual education, access to confidential mental health services, support in the community to ensure that paedophiles remain non-offenders, and better education for police and the courts to enable them to intervene effectively when paedophiles do offend. As a society, one of our first imperatives is to protect our children, the most vulnerable amongst us. And to do that effectively, we need to understand the nature of this threat and stop it before it starts. So, that was the Karen Irvine Hoaxtead Research 9th of November 2018 reaction to James Hind's blog, which he has now taken down. And these are some of the comments left by the Hoaxtead readers. Karen Irvine says, "It's fine, I completely understand. It's an uncomfortable topic." Luca writes, "I don't know about anyone else. I don't feel happy even discussing this subject. Anything unlawful should be passed to CEOP, as Tracy advised, and be done with it." Mark Trellis writes, "Your intentions are good, Satanic View, aka James Hind, aka it could be anyone. But I would urge you to work with, in capital letters, the police, i.e. be paid or work in official vetted volunteer capacity. If you can develop AI, much safer for you. You don't want the nightmare of being accused of something." Surreal Hustle writes, "What James has done is extremely unwise, and his detailed report of what he discovered should not have been posted here, but reported to the police." James' actions have a lot of similarities with those of some paedophile hunters. Predators may be identified, but if sensitive material is posted online, then it could possibly risk police investigations and or result in predators evading justice. The hunters make all kinds of accusations against this couple, calling them nonces and pedos, act in an aggressive manner, cause a huge drama in a public, busy place, and then post the video online. When the police eventually turn up, they see what appears to be two vulnerable people being harassed by an angry mob and effectively rescue them. I don't see what else they could have done under the circumstances. I can imagine that a good defence lawyer would use this video as evidence of entrapment and claim that, with the video going public, it would deny the alleged predators a fair trial. This is so depressing, as if the couple in the video had done what the hunters claim they had done, they are extremely dangerous and present a significant risk to children. I am especially interested in the area of couples and female offenders, as this is an area that is not well understood or widely reported. One thing this site is usually very good at is demonstrating proper boundaries around sensitive issues. I think that is not one of his best blogs, best days. One thing I would be very interested to understand is how AI could be used in the battle against online grooming and exploitation. It goes on. James, if you think that AI can help the police, then I would encourage you to write a proposal, outline your ideas. Share them here if you want to. I just don't even think about subjecting yourself to further illegal and traumatizing material. Sally, the Senko, says, "In my profession, we're advised not to do anything that could potentially be misinterpreted, that can do nothing potentially be misinterpreted, such as being alone with pupils after school, giving them lifts, befriending them on social media and so on. And I would think that engaging with kids in chat rooms would come under that category, even if one's motives are completely honourable." An owl named Sage writes, "Even more so, as many of the possible related charges are strict liability offences. The police and CPS don't have to prove mens rea. All an honourable intention becomes is a plea for mitigation on sentencing. So there we have a very good breakdown of exactly what James Hind is saying online and what the Hoaxtead research community make of it. Now, what I want to do now, just to finish off this second part of this Taylor TV podcast dedicated to James Hind, is just to reiterate and highlight some of the content we've just heard. So James Hind is a danger to children. This is what we've heard him write already. There is a number of things that experts have not picked up upon and are very wrong. In one chat room, I am aware of a pattern never reported before, that certain types of girl in the 12 to 15 age group would effectively challenge paedophiles, but seem to end in a close emotional interaction with a few. He would only notice having had a relationship with girls aged 12 to 15 in close emotional interactions. Speaking with younger teens, that the paedophile hunters and police are insulting if they think that most teens write like them in chats with retarded text speak. The younger teens write very well. By stating younger teens write very well, he shows he's been in communication with younger teens, which can only mean 7 to 11-year-olds. This is really disconcerting information, shining a light on a did and a dangerous map hiding in plain sight. He must be revealed to be the predator he really is, to save the lives of children online. A predator hiding in plain sight, screaming at the top of his lungs that there are dozens of so-called Satan hunters running around the world harming people. He accuses everyone else of being what he already is. The poor man suffers from didism, dissociative identity disorder. And groomers, this is what he says in speech marks, and groomers don't spend weeks and months grooming on the internet. Most move towards the subject of sex very quickly. So he knows the subject moves towards the subject of sex very quickly because he's in conversation with young teenagers when the subject turns to sex very quickly. And just from memory, and which I haven't made in this blog paste, he says he has been watching material, extremely distressing nature of the top class end of disturbing material. So here we have an acknowledgement from James Hind that he's been in sexual conversation with young teens, aged 7 to 11-year-olds. And yet, fellow Satan hunters continue to lend their support. Here we have one individual who says, I clearly endorse fully my friend and fellow researcher James Hind to avoid any confusion. And the same can be said to Andrew Goyne, to Chris Brindle, and Danny Jones, aka Lyndon Warden. So, on behalf of Taylor TV Podcasting, I'm bringing this information in the purpose of detecting and preventing crime, and put forward this evidence that James Hind is a did and map, hiding in plain sight, calling everyone else the monsters that he himself is. It's time to shine the light on James Hind and reveal to everyone what he really is. Tasked as a moderator of a well-known pre-teen, teenage online social media site to identify and remove paedophiles, James Hind does the opposite. He says in his own words, in my interactions I am nice, polite and approachable, probably too trusting and open to conversation. Yesterday, a random person offered me £500 to go onto Snapchat or Omegle and do what they said. I asked what they wanted, and they were not sure, but wanted me in my underwear. Then they wanted me to send pictures or videos of my penis. I refused. Now the question I would like to leave you with on this part 2 of Taylor TV podcast, all about James Hind, is: did James Hind pass on the details of every person who wanted him to send pictures and videos of his penis, believing they were talking to a 12-year-old boy? If he didn't, as he has sworn not to, he is protecting maps. So thank you ever so much, everyone, for listening to this part 2 of the Taylor TV podcast. The next part 3, we will be visiting James Hind's blog and reading what he has to say to you. Until the next time, everyone, thank you for listening to these podcasts, and I please you enjoy the full range of podcasts that are set to hit my channel. Until the next time, everyone, thank you, and beware the maps hiding in plain sight.